The weekend also marks the completion of President Trump's first 100 days in office. He now calls it an artificial marker, but the 100-day standard has long been used as an initial measuring stick for new presidents. Tonight, we begin an in-depth look at the president's first 100 days, a 5-part series that will run in this 5 p.m. hour all week long. For our first installment, here's Chief White House correspondent John Roberts.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
There's no question President Trump got off to a swift start on his first official day of business, signing 3 executive orders, fulfilling campaign promises to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal, implement a federal hiring freeze, and re-implement the so-called Mexico City policy on funding NGOs that provide abortion counseling. Within the first week, he also greenlighted the Keystone XL and Dakota Access pipelines, authorized building a border wall and rebuilding the military, and issued his ill-fated executive order on the immigration ban, which was immediately challenged in the courts.
These entrenched interests will do anything they can to keep the broken system in place.
Compared to his recent predecessors, President Trump has been particularly prodigious with executive orders. As of today, he has signed 25. That compares to 19 for President Obama, 11 for George W. Bush, and 12 for Bill Clinton. He has also signed 28 laws, compared to 14 for Obama, 7 for Bush, and Clinton's 22.
No administration has accomplished more in the first 90 days.
But unlike his recent predecessors, the president so far has no legislative accomplishments to point to. Presidential scholar Alan Lichtman was virtually alone in his early prediction that Donald Trump would win the presidency.
I think it's been a pretty troubled first 100 days. Not because he hasn't done anything. He has done a lot. This has not been a do-nothing presidency, but he's done almost all of it through executive order.
In his first 100 days, President Obama completed a massive stimulus package and signed the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. President Bush made headway on his signature tax cut and introduced his No Child Left Behind Act. Bill Clinton made good on a campaign promise, signing the Family and Medical Leave Act. So far, President Trump's promise to repeal and replace Obamacare has gone nowhere. Blocked, not by Democrats, but members of his own party.
The hallmark of a successful presidency is always to get permanent legislation through Congress. You really want to put your mark on the statute books of the country.
But it often takes far longer than 100 days to put legislative points up on the board. Ronald Reagan's first 100 was more a scene setter for what would come in the months to follow, including his signature tax cut signed August 13, 1981.
This represents $750 billion in tax cuts.
Candidates often backtrack from campaign statements as they roll out their presidencies, but President Trump's reversals have been notable in their degree and number. Among them, in the campaign, he loudly proclaimed China to be a currency manipulator, but now says they're not. He dismissed NATO as obsolete, but on day 83 told the NATO Secretary General it's not obsolete. He criticized the Export-Import Bank as unnecessary, but now says it's a good thing. And after urging President Obama in 2013 not to attack Syria, on day 77, President Trump ordered a cruise missile strike against Bashar al-Assad. Amid the flip-flops and setbacks, President Trump did rack up one major success. On day 12, he nominated Judge Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. And though Democrats blocked the nominee, forcing the Senate Majority Leader to invoke the nuclear option to confirm him, Gorsuch was sworn in on day 81.
Justice Gorsuch, I again congratulate you and your entire family.
President Trump's first 100 days were also marked by controversy. He was pilloried for his immigration ban, had to fire his national security advisor, and spent weeks defending a claim that he was wiretapped by President Obama. He put his political director on the National Security Council only to later take him off, and spent much of his first 100 days at war with the media, accusing them of fake news.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
You got to tear up the history books when it comes to Donald Trump. Probably no president in history has been as sort of inclined to create controversy as Donald Trump has been through his tweets, through his statements, through his attacks on his predecessor, Barack Obama.
Like many of his predecessors, President Trump faced foreign policy crises in his first 100 days. President Kennedy presided over the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion. President George W. Bush wrestled with China's seizure of a U.S. spy plane. President Obama authorized the rescue of Captain Richard Phillips from Somali pirates. President Trump was criticized as having no depth on foreign policy, but his handling of the missile strike on Syria, the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, and the looming threat from North Korea may provide a Reagan-esque pivot point for the president.
The world has a way of grasping your attention, and to the extent to which he can continue to seem to be acting decisively with respect to international challenges, that will put some wind in his sails and will earn him respect from the American people and even from some Democrats.
The president has a narrow chance for a legislative victory before his 100th day. Republicans are nearing agreement on a new health care proposal, but I am told it is very, very unlikely it could come to a vote this week. What the president definitely wants to avoid is a government shutdown that would come on his 100th day, working hard to cut a deal with Democrats on a new spending bill. Brett?
John, I'm struck by that last part of the piece where you talk about the foreign policy pivot. And today, meeting with the UN ambassadors and their wives, hosting them, meeting with Senators Lindsey Graham and John McCain, clearly that is a focus now for President Trump.
This really has, I think, been a pivot point for him, and as Alan Lichtman said, put some wind in his sails. And it's really interesting that it comes in what was taken to be probably his weakest suit. But he's acting decisively, whereas predecessors have not acted decisively. Today he told the UN Security Council ambassadors, you better get busy. The United Nations is an underperformer, but it's got potential. And on Wednesday, he's having the entire Senate, well, at least he's invited the entire Senate to come over and have a briefing with Rex Tillerson, the Secretary of Defense, the head of the CIA, and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So he really is sort of finding that foreign policy, ironically, has become his strongest suit.
And quickly, just your assessment of covering this White House. I mean, it has been fast and furious over these 100 days.
It's been like drinking from a fire hose, but it's probably the most interesting perch that you could have is to sit. I mean, we get to sit in the front row of that briefing room, but just to be there at the White House during what will be 4 years of history, unlike anything I have seen before. And I covered the Bush administration. There was a lot going on in those first few years, as you well know, because you were there as well. But it really is something else to behold, I'll tell you that.
Well, you do it well. Thank you, John.
Appreciate that. Thank you.